Senator Mark Warner's been on the road the last several days talking jobs and the economy with business leaders from across the Commonwealth during the Senate's August recess. And the senator joins me now to talk about some of those issues and what can be done to improve the economic climate. Senator, welcome back to First at 4.
Ryan, thanks for having me.
Before we get to that, we've got to talk about the D.C. rumor mill. You knew I was going to ask you about this.
I knew it.
Of course, there's a lot of talk about whether or not Rahm Emanuel is going to stay on as chief of staff to President Obama, and your name was actually floated as a potential replacement for Mr. Emanuel. Do you have any interest in being the White House Chief of Staff?
Not only no, but heck no. You know, I was as kind of blown away as anybody. I saw the email on it. My press guy, Kevin, called and said, "What's going on here?" And you know, my sense is, I don't know where it came from. I've been hired by the people of Virginia to try to do my part in the Senate. You know, I still think we need some more moderate, bipartisan voices. I hope I can add some value there.
I mean, you have talked extensively about how you think there needs to be some changes within the inner circle of the Obama administration.
Well, I do feel, as a former business guy, that sometimes the Obama administration and the business community talk past each other. And I think it is a valid critique that there's not anybody senior in the administration who's actually met a payroll, run a business, and understands from the private sector standpoint, not from an academic standpoint, but from the private sector standpoint, what it takes to jumpstart jobs.
You just don't think that's you?
It's not me.
And do you think it's time for Mr. Emanuel to move on? Do you think that would be wise for the president?
Not my job to make that prediction or make that. I think, you know, I've known Rahm for 30 years. I think he's a talented guy. I think he's often been a voice for more moderation than the public would think inside the White House.
Okay. All right, let's move on. You've been talking a lot about jobs in the economy. What do average people say to you that needs to be done on the ground to help improve the economy?
Well, I think folks, you know, are concerned why we're still in a deep recession. I think I try to explain we were in a pretty deep hole. Both parties were the cause of that. And a lot of folks actually got way too much into debt, and the financial system came to almost collapse. And what I'm saying, what I try to tell folks is, you know, government's kind of pretty much done its thing. We've lowered interest rates. We've used stimulus. What we've got to do right now, and one of the good pieces of news, is there's over $2 trillion in cash on large American company balance sheets right now. American large companies have never been in better shape. We've got to give them the predictability to go ahead and invest those dollars here in the United States.
One of the things business leaders have complained about is that they're concerned that taxes are going to go up. And one of the things the president seems unwilling to do is extend the Bush tax cuts. Where are you on that?
Here's what I think. I think that we ought to give predictability on capital gains, dividends, set that rate, I would say, at 20%. We ought to go ahead and raise the personal exemption around estate tax. On the Bush tax cuts, I think 98% of them ought to go ahead and be permanently extended. On the top 2%, for people like me, whether we extend them for a year or I could allow them to expire, but I would couple that with some additional business tax breaks. I think there's nothing wrong that says if I can make more money at the business level, and if then I personally have to pay a little bit more, paying basically the same rates I paid under President Clinton or President Bush's father, that would be a fair trade.
Now, what about just the perception that people have about the economy? They seem unwilling to spend, they seem unwilling to lend on the other side of it. How do you convince people that it's okay to jump back into the market and take those risks?
Well, one of the things, Ryan, I think we all felt like the economy was taking off in the spring, and then no problem of anybody in Washington, actually. We had the Greek debt crisis and the oil spill, and it seemed to rob people of confidence. So we've got two things we've got to do right now. One is we've got to make sure that we can convince these large companies who've got very healthy balance sheets right now, they're actually in better financial shape than they were before the recession, to start spending. We can do some things around the edges in terms of spurring small business lending, because 2/3 of the jobs coming out of a recession come from small business, and it's still tight credit flows. I've got a bill that will be passed, I think, next week that will incrementally help that. And all of us, from the president on down, need to keep our focus on being more positive about the economy and talking about job creation.
Okay, all right. Senator Warner, you'll be the senator to the balance of your term, correct?
You got it right.
Okay, all right. Thank you for being here, sir. We appreciate it. All right, and let's get